The great reformer Martin Luther was born in Eisleben, Germany, to Margaret and Hans Luder. That's how the name was pronounced locally. Hans worked in a copper mine and was determined that Martin would become a lawyer. After attending Latin school, Martin was sent to the University of Erfurt at the age of 13 years old. 13 years old. He earned his bachelor's and master's degree in the shortest time allowed by the university. His sharp intellect earned him the name the Philosopher. In 1505, the 21 Luther found himself caught in a severe thunderstorm. A lightning bolt struck the ground near him as he was walking on the road to Erfurt, and it scared him, and he screamed out, "Help me, Saint Anne, I will become a monk." Luther thought he was going to die. He honored his vow by giving away all his possessions and entering the monastic lifestyle. During his study of the book of Romans, Luther began to understand that salvation was a gift of God's grace, not something earned through works. He said, "Here I felt," I'm quoting, "here I felt as if I were entirely born again and had entered paradise itself through the gates that had been flung open." 1521, Luther took a bold stand against the Catholic Church and initiated the Protestant Reformation. Now, isn't it incredible to think that the Reformation began with a thunderstorm and a crash of lightning? Job's reformation started in a similar manner. In Job 38, God entered the scene in a mighty windstorm and addressed his servant Job. God put Job on the witness stand and began a barrage of 70 questions. Can you imagine facing an examination of 70 questions from God? These questions fall into three main categories, reminding Job of who he was, who God is, and who God will always be. And that is, he's the sovereign creator. He's writing our story, even in the unanswered questions of suffering. So here are the three questions God asks first in this section. Job, can you explain my creation? I'd like for you to do that. And then he'll ask, can you control my creation? And then, can you conquer my creation? Three sections that we'll go through. Okay, let's start with the first section, the first question. Job, can you explain my creation? Job chapter 38, verses 4-7. God asks, Job, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. I'd like to know if you were there when I laid the foundation. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know everything. You want to put me on the witness stand? Or who stretched the line upon it? Who measured it? Where were its bases sunk? Or on what were its bases sunk? Or who laid the foundation when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? God compares the creation of the earth to building a structure. And he asked Job, who decided how large the earth should be? Was it you? Did you stand there with a tape measure to ensure everything was accurately measured? Hey, Job, do you recall that beautiful song that the angels sang when we were working on creation itself? Oh, that's right, Job, you weren't there. Then how do you know so much about the way I operate if you weren't there at creation? If you expect God to approach Job gently, you're going to be disappointed in this section. When God highlights a point, he doesn't hold back. Job 38, 8-11, or Job, hey, who shut in the sea with doors, or when it burst out from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, set bars and doors, and said, thus far you shall come and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stayed. In the remainder of Job 38, God poses 15 additional questions to emphasize his point. Here are just a few. Job 38:16. Have you entered the springs of the sea or walked in the recesses of the deep? Job, have you been to the bottom of the ocean? Job 38:22-23. Job, have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Or have you seen where are the storehouses of the hail? Do you know where I reserved the hail, which I have reserved for times of trouble, for the day of battle and war? Do you know where I put all those things? Job 38:34-36. Hey, Job, can you lift up your voice to the clouds that a flood of waters may come? Can you control the rain? Can you send forth lightning that they may go and say to you, here we are, here's the lightning, I'm ready to go? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts or given understanding to the mind? God's words are filled with irony. His questions are rhetorical. Job has neither cursed God nor will he do so, contrary to Satan's prediction. However, Job's pain led him to put God on trial, and His heart became filled with pride, even as it was burdened by pain. Think about that. Your heart can become filled with pride, even as it's burdened by pain. God doesn't answer Job's questions. Instead, by questioning him, he compels Job to set aside his pride. Okay, look, here's the deal. I understand this is a difficult truth about suffering. However, let's just think it through. Even in our suffering, we can begin to feel a sense of pride. And I've been guilty of that. My questions to God have sometimes aimed at pushing him off the throne so I could take his place and rule my world. That's really what I want to do. I want to rule this thing. Okay? I want to speak frankly. Sometimes in our pain, in my pain, I'll speak for myself. I don't believe God's doing a good job. He didn't meet my expectations. He doesn't act as I deem best. He takes a direction which I disagree with. And I make my feelings known. And I allow my hurt and pain sometimes to involve in self-righteousness. It's one thing to call out to God for help. It's another thing to cry out because I want to control and run the world according to my desires. Oh, but God reminds us in this section, doesn't he? You weren't present when I created the world. So how could you possibly know how to run it? Job 38, focus on the questions that God asks. Read through those, are many, and how he addresses Job's pride. When you talk to God, ask him to deal with your pride, maybe pride that has built up in your pain. If you have any questions about this, be sure to send them to our team. We'd love to interact with you because I know this is a difficult subject and difficult thinking to go through. Just submit your questions. We'll get back to you. If you don't know Jesus, that's where we'd love to start a conversation with you. Father, thank you that you are God and we are not. You're the creator and we are not. Help us to submit to you, surrender to you, even in our pain. In Jesus' name, amen.